be honest, because he's just that, like, not a big, yeah. Well, and that's, he's somebody, and again, like, people.
Leo is not somebody that instinctually thinks in political terms. He's somebody that approaches it much more from a pastoral point of view, and he thinks the role of the church is to be an advocate for the people, not to get involved in global politics. So he's not going to be sitting there telling nations what they should or shouldn't do. He's going to be saying you need to look out for the people. So he's talking about humanitarian aid. He's talking about, needing to end the violence so that we can protect human life. What he says is more groups are starting to call this a genocide. The Holy See is not prepared to use that term yet. He said it's a very specific term with a lot of technicalities attached to it, and the Holy See is not prepared to adopt that at this point. But he said there are more groups starting to use that term, including groups within Israel, human rights groups within Israel, who have started calling the conflict in Gaza a genocide, and that's something he indicated we should be paying attention to.
Okay, and then
you are the first pope from the United States, but you're also the second pope with the perspective, if you will, of Latin America.
I asked him specifically about the Vatican's ability to mediate, which is something Francis was very keen to do, but Leo took a different approach. He said, I don't see it as being very realistic for the Holy See to mediate. We're happy to hold conversations on some Vatican property. He said, whether it's here at the Holy See in Vatican City or whether it's even in Castel Gandolfo, we're willing to do that, but it's not our job to mediate, and I don't see that as being realistic. He said what we can do is be advocates for peace and have a conversation at that level. Everybody is welcome, everybody is invited, everybody has a place. So, but the church teaching is not going to change. He talked about this document that Francis had published a couple of years ago, authorizing blessings for individuals in same-sex unions. And Leo very much was in favor of that document. He said, look, this is authorizing what the church has always done, which is we can always bless all people, but not in a ritualistic kind of way, not as part of a formal ritual or union that the church is authorizing. No, I think Leo is very aware of this narrative, and he doesn't want to be pigeonholed into the Trump Pope. I think he's aware that that's a possibility. He knows that there are differences with the Trump administration and the church's own policies, and he's going to be very clear about where the church comes down on that, and he's going to represent those positions. But I think he's going to have a very balanced approach. He's going to be clear and push when he feels like he needs to, but always in a very open way that signals he's open to dialogue and he's open to engagement. He's not going to draw hard lines unless he's really forced to do that. I think he's always going to look for the open door.
getting better or worse.
No, on the immigration issue specifically, I think Leo is going to have the same attitude as Francis, and he's going to bring the same passion to addressing that question. I think that's fundamentally for one reason. He himself, and he said this, that he himself is an immigrant, and he was welcomed into Peru by its people and now holds citizenship. And when Peru began to have its migration crisis with all the Venezuelans coming, it was really a national crisis for Peru at that time, and it was straining its infrastructure. And Leo was somebody who volunteered to help on the National Episcopal Conference's Social Action Committee, specifically to help with the migration issue, because he wanted to be involved. He wanted to make sure people weren't sleeping in the streets, that they had access to food and to health care. Even in our interview, he mentioned the letter that Pope Francis had written on immigration to the United States bishops, kind of criticizing, well, not kind of, but very directly criticizing the Trump administration's approach to migration and their mass deportation plan. So that is a position we can absolutely expect Leo to maintain and to carry forward and bring the same enthusiasm and the same passion for the protection of human life. This is his constant refrain. It's for the protection of human life, always. We need to watch out for people and their dignity. And he mentioned specifically that he brought this issue up in his meeting just a few months ago with J.D. Vance.
Jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download MetroTV Extend sekarang.